you hear me still?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. I've had a lot of people talk about how they want to make a recipe and they don't have milk around. And a lot of recipes call for milk. So I thought, being a person who likes to have ingredients around, you could have powdered milk, but I wanted to show all the other options of how to make milk that there is. We're going to cover, well, the ones I have, let's see, I have cashews, hazelnut, oatmeal, and almonds. And if you look back, we recently did do rice. We made horchata, which is rice with sugar and cinnamon, but you could just leave out the sugar and cinnamon and you've made milk, rice milk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But other options are, well, any type of nut butter, any type of seeds, but you could also use coconut. In my research, I came across a recipe for potato. I've never made like potato milk, but it's basically just extremely thin mashed potatoes, right? What other ones? The simplest is just get a type of nut butter and then just do a 1-to-1. 1 tablespoon to 1 cup of water, I think is the 1-to-1. Now, the best thing about all these recipes is if you use what are called nuts but are not allergic, cashews and almonds are really not nuts. It's completely allergen free. So these recipes we're going to talk about today, the majority of them, with exception, I think, hazelnut, are dairy-free, non-dairy, egg-free, gluten-free, grain-free, optionally nut-free, optionally peanut-free, soy-free, vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, plant-based, keto, and paleo. I think that covers it all. And so just you pick your favorite type of seed or nut and you blend it to make. So here I'll show you all the different things I have. So let's see, we'll focus good. I love cashews. This is just one jar I have. And in my under cabinet, you can see I've got this giant other bag of cashews. And cashews are the pit of a fruit, right? And so are almonds. So technically they're not a nut, so you don't get allergic to it. Now, if you wanted to have a really milky white milk, you would get your almonds and you would soak them overnight and take the little skins off. And the same with hazelnuts. But, I just toss them in a blender with water and a little bit of sugar, typically, or sweetener, because, if you're used to standard cow milk or dairy milk, it tends to have a slight sweetness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, so here's a typical, you can buy this. This is what, if you go to a coffee shop and you want a fancy coffee and you want the froth milk that's non-dairy. So this is oat milk, literally made from oats. Now, if you read the ingredients, they add sugar and they add richness to it. They add oil. So if you want to have it that super creamy, rich flavor, you have to add a little oil. Now, while you're making it, you do have the choice of tons of flavors. I typically use my milk to do one thing: English pudding. I love bird's pudding. And my favorite part is the recipe, you know, because it's from England. It starts on the hob. I guess that means on the stove, right?
Yep.
And so you basically just mix the powder with your milk and you slow cook it and you make this just delightful pudding. But you can have different flavors. You know, if you like coffee, put a little mocha syrup in it. Or when you grind the beans or grind the nuts, throw in a coffee bean or two. And then you have coffee flavored milk. If you want to get wild, some rum flavor or mint or orange blossom. Now, today what I'll do is I'm going to do 4 types based on the stuff I already had in my kitchen. I'm going to do cashew, hazelnut, oat, and almonds. And I'll do a taste comparison of them. And I will not put any sugar in it, so I can just taste comparison them straight. Of course, if you want chocolate milk, cocoa powder, or if you have, again, you know, your cocoa beans, you could throw a bean in there while you're blending it.
How would you make it with coconut?
Similar, you just, ideal. You could do the dried coconut that I've done, it was better.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, if you do fresh coconut, it won't look milky.
Okay.
You know, I don't remember it ever looking, it would look kind of, I remember it looking kind of grayish color.
Okay.
If you use a fresh coconut.
Yeah, I've
but
got
then
dried
if you use
coconut.
a dried one,
Mm-hmm.
if you have, you know, you just basically are making a flavored water is what we're doing here, right?
Okay. Yep.
That doesn't sound as nice as milk, but that's what we're essentially doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps if you have a really good food processor or a big heavy duty blender that you don't mind tossing nuts into. And for consistency, I'm going to make it really rich. I'm going to put, about a cup, and then I'll make each one, you know, I've got a jar for each type. And so to start out, I'm just going to measure each thing out into my jar in preparation. So we'll have consistency here. Now, you can put very little nuts. You can put a lot of nuts. I tend to like it really rich, so I put a lot. But if you look online, the standard recipe for a cup of milk is, you know, a heaping spoonful of nut butter in a blender with a cup of water.
Hmm.
And again, if you want it different flavors, okay, so we got oats and cashews ready. And then, now again, when you do the almonds with the skin on, you can blend it, like do a quick rough blend and then skim off the skins. Or you just blend it and it tends to, you know, not be super white. It tends to have a little brownish tint to it. But all right, what's left? Hazelnut. And I suppose, I mean, you could make any type of flavored water. Like right now, it's the holidays. And so if you have a little bit extra pumpkin, throw some pumpkin in there. I would recommend it being cooked, but all right.
And you could season it with fun things like cinnamon and stuff. If you wanted a different flavor.
Yeah, I mean, you can put any flavor you want while you're blending it. So, all right. Let's start with hazelnut. You see that good? And then so I'm doing a 1-to-1. I'm making it super rich. Let's see.
So you're doing like 1 cup of nuts and 1 cup of water?
So I'm trying to make a quart of each. So
Okay.
I do a quart of water and then slightly less than half of a quart of nuts. What I'm doing. So here we go. First one. So if you like, I pulsated it. Now it's rough. If I wanted to, I could now skim off the seeds not the seeds, the skin. Because most of the skin is now floating on the surface. And so you can see it like chopped them all up. And then, but I like the nutrition of the seeds. So then it doesn't end up looking as milky. And if you wanted to, like, the proper process is you do it and then you run it through a cheesecloth to get the bits out. So if you want it like a perfectly smooth, and if you look at this one, because it's got the skins in it, you can see it's got kind of a gray tint to it, more brown because it's got the skins in it. But and again, I'm lazy, so I won't run it through a cheesecloth. But look how frothy that is. Just like, oh, made a little too much. All right. I'm going to get another glass and just drink that. Mm-hmm. You can see the bottom has more particles of the nuts. And that's where, if you want it like perfectly milky, you would run it through a cheesecloth to strain all the bits out. Also, if you let it set, it will settle on the bottom. And so, but again, I don't like to waste any of it. So I just blend it. So the last one I messed up. You should pour the water in the jar before you dump the nuts out, and then they'll tell you exactly how much to make a quart. And if you have super, super dry nuts, you might want to soak them overnight. All right, this one's almonds. So you can see one pulse. It separated the skin will start floating to the surface. See how frothy it is? Oh, you can see it from the side maybe. You've got like a layer of froth on the top. Look how creamy that is. And then see, there's the nut bits right at the end. So if I wanted to, I could just separate the nut bits out. See, there they are. All right. Any questions so far?
No.
So far I've got what? Hazelnut and almond. Now let's do an oat. What I like about this is you don't have to even worry about refrigeration. This is all stuff that will just stay good. Like, I don't know about indefinitely, but a really long time. Suzanne, you picked up something. I couldn't see what it was.
So I'm draining out my coconut milk. So I've got my coconut stuff. Check out this little thing. Isn't this cute? The cutest little thing. You can set it on the side and it just drains.
What is it?
It's a little drainer that
Oh
it's
yeah,
got.
that's. Oh, I need one of those.
I'll see if
That's
I can
like
get you
perfect.
one. Yeah, it's so cool. It's great on like the side of a pan. So I feel like I need to use
Well,
a
what I would
cheese-
like about that is, you know, it's also a skimmer. You can just dip out stuff out of something.
Yep,
I've seen those at Chinese
that's where I got it
restaurants.
from. Yeah, I got it from a Chinese
I mean,
store.
I have one kind of like that. Not really, no. Where is it? I mean, this little guy, but you know, to pick up dumplings.
Yep.
And I've used that before to like, but the holes are too big for. All right. Next one is oats. There you go.
Now, would you ever like toast the nuts before you do it? Or does it need to be
I
raw?
mean, again, if you wanted that flavor, but I do know that the more, well, actually, my almonds are toasted. You know, I mean, that's the almonds I'm using. I tend to snack on almonds pretty frequently.
Yeah, me too.
And so that's why I have this like little candy dispenser that's just on the shelf. And so I can just reach in and grab in a couple almonds. I'm always, that's my go-to. Well, this jar ended up having a little bit of oats still in it, so I'm gonna have to rinse it out so it doesn't have bits when I finalize. I mean, if you look at it, it's settling. It's got the, you know, so if you leave it in the fridge for a long time, all the bits will settle to the bottom. And you can, you know, you'll drink the top part and then you might have to chew a little bit of the bottom. But if you just want milk, again, you know, you can run it through a strainer and just get the perfect consistency. And if you really want the richness of like whole milk versus like, this is more like a skim milk. And then if you want like a 2%, you have to add a little oil to it. Or, all right. Now the oat milk doesn't get as frothy. I feel like almond milk, of all these so far, has been the frothiest. But there, I'm being a little more consistent. All right. And I have been, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been rinsing out the blender. It's not necessary to do, but here I'm trying to do a taste test. So there's that slight little cross taste. It probably doesn't matter. It probably, but when I'm doing my I mean, usually I'll just do like 1 quart. Like, what kind of milk do I want today? And then I'll just do a whole quart and, use like half of it now. And then the other half would go in the fridge. Oh, why am I doing that? For later. All right. And I mean, if you notice, the blender does help if you have a pulse. It tends to be a lot quicker. But I mean, it's just so frothy. And all the nut ones, it's like, okay, of all of them, the cashew probably had the least amount of bits at the bottom, like afterwards. But, all right. Now, are you doing different flavors too, so you could taste test the different ones, or?
I am not. I'm being lazy.
I think as far as flavor goes, I probably like coconut milk more, because it's already got the flavor built in. You don't have to add any flavor to it. Okay. I almost mixed them up. Okay, that's oats. So we've got hazelnut, almond, oats, and cashew. So trying to think which one. I feel like the cashew has the more flavor than all of them, so I'll use it last. Taste it. So cashew, it is creamy and slightly sweet already and very frothy. It's just like, and maybe it's because it's the last one, it hasn't had a chance to settle, but I don't really see much. Also, when I poured it from the blender, there wasn't very much. And I blended them all about the same amount of time. There was less bits, but also both the almond and the cashew also have the skin, right? So that's more bits. Now we're looking at oat milk. So that just tastes like oats. It tastes like well-made fresh oatmeal. How else could you describe it? That has definitely a distinct oat taste. Very much, even oatmeal isn't as strong of taste as that. Well, this is just froth. I need to take another sip. I just ended up just getting very frothy. So that one definitely still had almond texture to it. So it still has a little grit to it. But that is like the frothiest and creamiest. But I don't know if you can see the distinct separation of froth. It's about this deep. And then the milk. And so when I drank it, I had to take a second sip, obviously, to get to the milk. And it definitely has more grit to it. So the almond, if you want very much a smooth milk texture, you would definitely want to drain that of all these. But again, I think that's because it's got the skin on it. If you pull the skin, if you get the almonds without the skin, or you soak them and then slightly pinch them, the skin just comes right off, right? You soak them overnight. All right, hazelnut. That also it's interesting. Half of the bits soaked to the bottom, but otherwise it has a layer here. This, I would say, we should be blended a little extra long because I literally got half a mouth of chewiness of bits. But, all right, going back. I think it's probably, as far as like actually tasting like milk, it's probably the blend of the first two because they didn't have the skins on them. So it doesn't have that texture. Definitely cashew, because it has that sweetness. You would have to add a little sweetness to the other ones. What else? Yeah, I would take the oat almost completely out of there if you're going for a milk. It looks like milk, but it 100% tastes like oats. The other ones, like if you strained them, add a little bit of oil and a little bit of sugar, probably someone would not know at all that they were not milk. So,
and that was the cashew and the almond
and hazelnut.
and hazelnut. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, so oat milk, I actually like it as a flavor because it's these other ones. There's really no flavor to them. There's like, it's creamy. Maybe if you really, really like delve in, you'll taste like, oh, that does taste like, you know, hazelnut, almond, and cashew. But it's very, very not there. Well, the oat very much tastes like oat.
Okay.
And the oat is the creamiest though, because I think, but
so then if you're baking,
cashew,
so oat would be good for baking then.
Or, I mean, if you like the flavor of oats.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I wouldn't see why you couldn't have, I don't know, pretty much anything you have for breakfast and just make some oatmeal to go with it, right? Like, I mean, granola with some oat milk over it, you're eating oats and oats. I mean,
Yep. Yeah, that would be all right.
But yeah, of all these, the lazy man method, the cashew is probably the best for like no grit. And the hazelnut was the worst. That it has like, so like the oat and all of them, you can blend them longer. You can, again, filter them. Typically, most people filter them if they're going for that milk texture. I just like the lazy man method like I just did. I think cashew, of all these, is like the milk winner. Just cashews in there. It's like sweet and creamy, and then it doesn't have any grit to chew. And now I get to decide what flavors do I want, right? So I can pour it out of here into a small glass and then add a flavor. And then each time I have, because part of it is, I mean, nuts are healthy, but you know, that was a cup of nuts. Now you can drink a cup of nuts this way, but you're probably not going to eat a whole cup of nuts. So good deal. Simple. Now, the one thing in my research I did come across was potato, and I have never did that. So I'll go back and look that one up. But what I liked about the ones I did, or even coconut, if you have, ideally unsweetened coconut, if you have it where it's like covered with sugar, it'll come out too sweet. But you can do less. Here I was doing, I was all about packing in as much nuts as I could, which is partially why it tends to be more gritty. If you just want a milk, here, let's do one where it's, I don't have any nut butter, but you can just do, if you have nut butter, it's like 1 heaping tablespoon in a cup of water. So let's do that. Which one? I like the cashew the best. Let's do a cashew. Oops. I guess I should change the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So again, the 1-to-1, you just get a heaping teaspoon or tablespoon of nut butter. And if you look at the majority of nut butters tend to have a little sweetener to it. So you do a heaping tablespoon of nut butter and then a cup of water. I don't see a measuring cup.
That wouldn't quite be 1-to-1, because 1-to-1 would be 1 cup of something to 1 cup of something.
Right. It's not 1-to-1. It's like 1-1. It's just a way to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, and we'll pulsate it a little longer than the lazy man method, because I don't mind grit, but. So there's, and you can't really tell the difference as far as looks go. So here you go, fresh glass of frothy milk, just like that.
Nut juice.
So.
Which, that doesn't really sound good.
That's interesting how much, cashews I put in this one versus that 1 tablespoon in this one, and it doesn't really taste any different. Okay, as far as taste, it doesn't taste different, but the other one is definitely a lot more thicker. It has more of a consistency to it. But that's, an instant glass of milk from 1 tablespoon of cashews and a cup of water. And with the cashews, again, you can get away with it a lot easier because the cashews, get away with not adding any other ingredients. Because the cashews themselves tend to be creamier and slightly sweeter. So with other nuts and seeds, you're going to want to add a little bit of some kind of sweetener or some type of oil to it. But as you can see, I really like cashews. This is my jar I keep on the shelf. And then I have another 2-gallon big bucket of it down there. I mean, have you ever made a cream sauce with cashews where you do more nuts and less liquid, and you just make like a creamy cheese sauce? So, all right, that's it. Now nice. I've got more milk than I could ever drink of.
Yeah. Now you're gonna have to make something.
Just like make well, we're supposed to drink what, 8 glasses of liquid a day. So if each one of my glasses were different flavored, it is Sunday afternoon. So should I start with rum flavored?
Go.
It's like it's not real rum, but it'll still like open your senses. And I definitely am going to make some
Custard.
pudding.
Nice.
English pudding. So, all right. Any questions? Well,
No.
did anybody ever notice my sign back here? It
No, I
says,
can't see
love
it.
people, eat them tasty food.
Nice.
Oh, cook them.
I was gonna say cook them.
Love
Yes.
people, cook them tasty food. Now, that's where if you put a comma, you could say, love people, cook them tasty food.
Yep.
So you have, punctuations matters.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, love people, cook them tasty food. But if you had love people, cook them, comma, tasty food, there's a different meaning. Just like, I've had that up there for a few years. All right. Any final questions before I wrap it up? What would you use your milk for? I mean, part of it is I grew up without refrigeration and without milk. We had goats. So if we did have milk, we'd have fresh milk, and then we'd immediately make that milk into cheese or
nice.
yogurt because it stores better longer time.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, if we wanted milk, I actually grew up putting apple juice in my cereal until I got electricity and learned how to, make different types of seeds and nut milk. And then
I would make pancakes out of it.
Ooh.
I would make either pancakes or I would use it as the liquid part for the overnight oats, where you use
there you go.
chia seeds and stuff in it. So,
well, I mean, you could do the overnight oats and then toss that in the blender and then more easily eat a lot in a short amount of time.
Yep. Yeah.
So, good deal.
I actually